My friends, good day. I was just telling you 2 or 3 days ago that Trump would not be able to bring about the reindustrialization of the United States with his tariffs or his trade barriers, if you will. And one of the reasons I mentioned was the instability of his policy. Because, and not just his policy actually, the instability of American policy in general. That is to say, industrial decisions are made on a 10 or 15-year horizon to be profitable because it involves investing billions, training people, hiring people, all of that. It's not in 6 months or in a year or two that we'll see any revenue. It really takes a decade or more to start reaping the results of the investment. However, American politics is generally too unstable, and Trump's policies are even more unstable. He announced tariffs, saying production should happen in the United States. So that means invest in industry in the United States. What does he do? 2 or 3 days later, yes, well, we're going to suspend the tariffs for 90 days to negotiate. Well, okay, he can play that game, but what he's doing is simply creating instability. However, instability and industrialization don't go together. So, well, that's it. He still imposed tariffs. Those 104% tariffs on China are not affected by this moratorium. China responded with 84%. So there you have it. There's this back and forth of tariffs here and tariffs there. The problem is that China sells 8% of its production to the United States. That means if we can imagine the extreme case where China completely stops importing from or exporting to the United States, that drops to 0%, which is unimaginable. They'll have to import from China because there are many essential things they no longer know how to make or manufacture. China will lose 8%. They'll lose a client that accounts for 8%. That's it. Simple. They can always continue to invest to develop the remaining 92%. And probably over a period of a year or 18 months, they will have made up for that loss. The United States, 40% of what they use, 40% of what they consume. It's going to be a bit harder to do without China. Because if they do without China, then for China, the United States is roughly 10%. The United States, when they look at China, it's almost half. It's almost 50% of what they consume. So it's a little, there you go. It's going to be a bit tricky. So what did I want to tell you? Others, apart from this instability, what I noticed is that it's hard to find realism. Trump. So he's a politician. Like most, he does some things well and others not so well. Sometimes he tries to do something but makes a mistake or aims for one result and gets another. He's a man full of contradictions, naturally. But when I look around me, what do I see? I see just as many. There are anti-Trump people to the point where we talk about TDS, to the point where it literally becomes derangement. There are Americans who have fits, who have hysterical outbursts against Trump. And there are people, including in Europe, who consider Trump to be the incarnation of a living God walking on earth. And whatever he does, they will always defend him. Even when he does something that ends badly, they say, yeah, but don't worry, he thought it through and he anticipated it and all that. Losing the election to Biden, he didn't anticipate that either, you see. So what do you want me to say? These days, it's hard to find realism about Trump, to find reason when it comes to Trump. In reality, it's hard to find those characteristics in every area. It's not just when it comes to Trump. We're hearing more and more extremely polarized rhetoric. Look, let me give you an example of extremism. In the United Kingdom, we have big problems. That means we have a problem with, we have some of the most expensive energy in the world. We've lost the steel mills. We're losing everything. People are leaving. Industries are closing. All of that. We're really heading toward an economic collapse. What did we decide to do? We decided, get this, we decided to go and cement the British oil and gas wells. So in the United Kingdom, we have gas wells. What did we decide to do? We decided to go and cement them. Why? Well, for climate reasons, because we want to make it irreversible. And I used this biblical image last year. Last year or the year before, I was talking to you about Philistines. I was talking to you about well poisoners. The Philistines, when they arrived in the desert, they would find a well, and since they couldn't take it with them, they couldn't loot it, they could drink the water, but at some point they had to leave. So what did they do? Either they poisoned it, or they threw stones in it, they pushed sand, stones, rubble into it to fill it up, so that if someone else came along later, months or weeks later, crossing the desert and arrived at this well, they would find that it had been filled in. These people had nothing to gain by doing this, but simply they did it so that no one else could benefit from it. So today we have well poisoners who are leading us. So from there, anything is possible. Anyway, my friends, that's it. I won't go any further because I've been having a bit of trouble uploading lately. I'm traveling. Look behind me. This is Norway. There's a little fog rolling in between the mountains. Before leaving Europe, I decided to take a little trip through the Norwegian fjords. I've wanted to do this for a long time. This country is literally a discrete Saudi Arabia of Europe. If you want, it's an extremely rich country. They are not. This isn't the European Union. You won't find the EU flag, and they aren't in the EU or the Eurozone. Signs everywhere show they don't accept the Euro. They don't get caught up in all this climate obsession stuff. They keep pumping gas and everything from the North Sea. They haven't spent on wars and craziness and all that. They put the country's economy, well, the savings as we call it, the country's savings, they put it in a sovereign wealth fund that today is worth 1,500 billion, 1.5 trillion in a sovereign wealth fund that belongs to the people. So honestly, in terms of human development, in terms of the Human Development Index, they're practically at the maximum. You can't do better than here. It's a bit chilly, that's true. You have to deal with it. But beyond that, you don't come here for the cities because the city's here. Right now we're in Olden. You can look it up on a map. Olden is literally a Smurf village. You see the houses. Let's take a look. I'm moving away. The houses, 1, 2, 3, 4, are sometimes hundreds of meters apart, scattered on the hillside. There's absolutely nothing else. You don't see any, nothing, sorry, to be fair. You still see the mountains, the lakes, all that. Actually, people come here for nature. You don't come here to go to Zara or to an Apple store because you have that right near your place. If you live in Lyon, Paris, or somewhere else, you have that at home. You don't have to come here just to visit H&M or similar stores. So there you go. It's really a country. I think it represents a lot of European people who have done that, a lot of European people who have achieved the same standard of living. If they hadn't been wasted, if they hadn't been squandered on useless wars, on massive importation of migrants, on following climate ideologies that lead them to even seal gas wells, you see what I mean? That's it. I really like this country. Well, I'm not going to live there for those trying to guess where I'm going. I'm leaving. I'm leaving Europe completely. I still have a few weeks left. You know, you can't just leave like that. There's paperwork and everything. But one day you'll see me at an airport. I'm already preparing the video. You'll see me at an airport with a one-way ticket in my hand. And that's it. And then we'll always keep talking here, that's for sure. But anyway, I'll leave Europe for good. It's sad. It's sad. It's a continent that has everything it needs to succeed, though. Honestly, almost every European country fundamentally has what it takes to become another Norway. Seriously. Except that, there you go. Except that they have leaders who are at war with them. That's already something. And then another thing is that a lot of their population, a good part of their population, has swallowed it. They've swallowed a bit of the propaganda that's against them. When you see retirees, when you see people on minimum wage who say, yeah, we spend a lot. We have a huge ecological footprint. Sorry, but your ecological footprint depends on your income. If you earn minimum wage, your ecological footprint matches it. It's the same as minimum wage. And if you think your ecological footprint is huge, that it's too high, then you're basically calling for your minimum wage to be lowered. You're basically saying we could cut your income in half, right? And that would cut your ecological footprint in half. There you go. If you're ashamed to exist, we can do that. Many Westerners are calling for this without realizing they're asking elites to make them poorer. They're making themselves poorer, which is the plan. It's a plan, but the majority of, not the majority, but a good part, a pretty critical, significant part of Europeans are asking to be made poorer. I think that, I don't know. I don't know how to explain that. Can we explain it through psychology? Can we explain it by maybe civilizations reach a certain point of maturity? And then, when they reach the peak of that maturity, they start to feel ashamed of existing. Maybe, I don't know. they feel ashamed of existing. They start to contemplate death. They start to cultivate a sense of guilt that leads them to say, that's enough, I'm going to end it. There you go, my friends. Thank you for listening to this video. Let me remind you about my book, Les Grandes Trahisons, available on Amazon. It tells you all about it, among other things, about how the European elites are waging war on their own people. Because what's happening right now, you know it, you've guessed it, I think. It's not by chance. It's not an accident either. In fact, that's one of the first sentences in the book. Thank you for staying with me until now in this video, and I'll see you in the next one.